Good afternoon, I'm Katie Wilson and you're watching Context. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is poised to meet US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the NATO summit in The Hague on Tuesday, in a bid to improve relations between the two countries. Ties between the two sides grew tense following Turkey's decision to buy a Russian S-400 missile defense system, which prompted the US to bar Ankara from purchasing F-35 fighter jets. According to Bloomberg News, Erdogan will try to convince Trump to lift the ban by providing assurances that Turkey will use the Russian missile defense system in a controlled way. According to Turkey, the purchase of F-35 jets would enable its military to operate in sync with other NATO members and bolster deterrence on the alliance's southeastern flank. Erdogan departed today to attend the NATO summit, where the leaders and officials of the 32 allies will discuss security, defence expenditures and defence capacity in the face of growing conflicts across the world, including the recent escalation between Israel and Iran. Joining us now to discuss what we can expect from the upcoming NATO summit and the meeting between Erdogan and Trump is political commentator Hague Ercal. Thank you for being with us. Now, what can we expect from the upcoming NATO summit, particularly for this region?
As you summarized perfectly, these US sanctions under the US law, CAATSA they call it, and it is directly under the name of American adversaries sanction law. And Turkey is not a US adversary. Turkey is just a NATO member. And if Trump remembers very well, and our listeners here, Turkey really wanted to purchase Patriot missile system from the United States for a long time. They failed to deliver them. They wouldn't even deliver anything else, including the very simple gadgets to repair the planes.
So how do
Turkey had to sit down.
How do you think Erdogan...
Turkey had,
Go on, continue.
Turkey had to replace those things through other nations and building itself, manufacturing itself. And right now, I don't think Turkey needs any F-35, 53 or whatever at all. But Turkey simply wants some better relations with the United States as a NATO member. To be subject to sanctions is not something Turkey wishes right now. Erdogan doesn't want that kind of adversary relationship with the United States.
So you've sort of touched on this already. So how do you think Erdogan and Trump are going to be measuring the success of that meeting?
First of all, we have to hear from Trump that he will reconsider the sanctions on 35 airplanes. If we hear that, we will understand that the discussions went really good. We have to watch if Erdogan is going to say that, yes, he convinced the US president that Turkey is not going to be treated as adversary from now on, but as all other NATO members treated. And that will be a good indication of this talk. Other than that, I think Turkey is going to say a couple of words about the Iranian situation. If you remember, Turkey didn't criticize recent US strikes on Iran very severely. Turkey simply said that Turkey wants to keep the Iranian people out of way of harm and everything.
Let's get into this a bit more. As you've mentioned that Middle East situation, let's talk about that a bit more, because as you say, Turkey and Iran are at loggerheads in many parts of the Middle East, but Ankara has been vocally critical of both Israeli and American strikes on Tehran. So could Turkey serve as a moderating influence?
Turkey would like to moderate, but I don't think the Iranians are going to accept Turkey's role as moderator. For some strange reason, the Islamic Republic had this not so friendly relations with Turkey, and for a long time, it's been almost 30 years, Turkey is trying to convince them that there is no danger coming from Turkey to Iran at all. Anyway, they were supporting Shia, in Iraq for a long time in Syria, and they treated somehow Turkey and the Turkish presence in Syria is not good for any Iranian allies, Saddam and later Bashar al-Assad with them. And but at the end, they saw that Turkey is not any way danger for Iran in any way in Middle East. Probably they understood this, but still we didn't hear anything coming from Iran that they would like to have Turkey as acting as moderator for the recent Israeli situation.
So what about on Washington's end? What extent do you think Ankara has influence over Washington's policy on Iran?
A lot, Kathy. Last time, during the first Trump term, we had some understanding coming from the American side that Trump's assistants would never leave Erdogan alone with Trump. Because Erdogan was immediately convincing Trump that some neoconservative policies, some new globalist policies of the former presidents was not good for his administration. And at one point, Erdogan convinced him to withdraw all the soldiers, US soldiers from Syria. And again, I hope they will develop this good friendly relationship with Trump again between them, and we will see that Turkey will have good, very good effect on the new plan of NATO to increase the military spending or military industrial spending in any way in NATO countries. Turkey is for it. And Trump was also supporting their idea.
So and what about?
I hope.
What about Turkish?
I hope there will be a very good relationship between two presidents at the end of the day.
What about Turkish-Israeli relations? How vital is it for President Trump to avoid a deterioration between Turkey and Israel?
There is only one way. Trump can mend this relationship between Israel and Turkey, is that if he can stop immediately Israeli strikes on Gaza and their intrusions in West Bank, everything will be okay. And then they should allow Turkish assistance go into Gaza. Probably at the end of the day, we will also hear some things regarding this issue from Trump.
Now I want to turn our attention to the South Caucasus as well, the wider region. Now, Turkey has expressed concern that the current conflict may lead to wider destabilization. How concerned is Ankara that this crisis could encroach upon its interests in the South Caucasus?
The recent trip of Armenian Prime Minister to Turkey is an indication of Turkey's interest, let me say interest or involvement with the Caucasus in larger terms. Turkey itself doesn't want any adversarial relationship with Armenia. We don't have any. We don't have any adversarial things regarding Armenia per se. Only point Turkey kept making was the Armenian invasion of some Azerbaijani lands, and it is solved. And now there is no need for any further
So what stance do you
hostilities.
think the Trump administration will adopt in regards to Turkish-Armenian normalization?
They will love it. They will love it because they want to see the trade between the two countries go up. There is potential for this. Armenia herself needs lots of help from Turkey, lots of commerce from Turkey, and I hope very soon we will have such positive developments, and Trump will love to hear from Erdogan about these developments.
And would you say, is it fair to say that the United States and Turkey are allies in the South Caucasus?
They are. They are. They should be. Because look from the other way. I mean, Turkey has nothing against Armenia per se, other than the Armenian intrusion to to Azerbaijan. Now it is solved. What is left behind? Only some lobbies in the United States working against the good friendly relationships between Armenia and Turkey. So if we can put this aside, we will see that there is very good opportunities to develop commercially, industrially, and socially. We have very large Armenian communities in Turkey, and they would love to see these developments about the relations between two countries. And it is very good for Armenia, it's very good for Turkey, it's very good for Azerbaijan too. I mean, if Armenia is going to act as a good neighbor with Turkey, probably they are going to act as a good neighbors with Azerbaijan too.
To what extent would you say that Turkish-American interaction in the South Caucasus, could it also be designed to counteract Iranian influence?
I hate to say this, but yes, Iran, for some strange reasons, was acting not too friendly when it comes to the improving relations between Armenia and Turkey. They did some border issues, they raised some other territorial issues, commercial issues. They objected the development of the highway connections between two countries, between three countries. I hope Iran will see that it is not good for them to act that bad as a bad neighbor to everybody in the neighborhood. Again, we see that the United States could side with Israel anytime, and they need Azerbaijan's support, they need Armenian support, they need Turkish support, and they after these bad things that happened for the last 12 days, Iran, I hope, is going to act in a very different way, very friendly way towards Turkey. I hope.
So I'd like to widen this out to some other geopolitical issues. Syria is also likely to be on the meeting's agenda, isn't it?
Yes, it is. For two dimensions. The impact of Iran on Syria, and to prevent that bad impact. And another thing is the territorial integrity, to keep the territorial integrity of Syria. For some reason, and you know, and I know, everybody knows that the neocons, globalists, had some illusions, creating three, dismembering Iraq and dismembering Syria and creating a second Israel other than Israel, depending on the Kurdish terrorists.
And Turkey has also
Kurdistan.
been a key mediator between Russia and Ukraine, with Istanbul hosting the talks between the two sides.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so how will Erdogan use this summit as a platform to push for peace?
Yeah, Erdogan is a very peaceful man, and he likes to have better relations with, improved relations with Russia. Turkey is not acting as a NATO country when it comes to Mother Russia, and Ukraine and Turkish relations with Ukraine for a long time is also beneficial to Turkey and to Ukraine. And these good relations with both sides helped Erdogan play the role of peacemaker, mediator between two countries. And he will continue this. And I am sure he is going to have very strong, very vocal support from Trump tonight in the Hague regarding Ukraine war and how to end it quickly.
Now, my final question for you: how do you predict this NATO summit will play out, and what do you predict the outcomes will be?
Well, the very difficult question is, but the answer is going to be very easy, Kenny. Simply because Europeans will notice end of tonight that there is such a thing as NATO and there is such a thing as Europe, and they will notice that they exist, hopefully, and they will come back to realize their own existence, I hope, the European people.
It's great to have you on the programme. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you very much.
Well, that brings this edition of Context to a close. The upcoming NATO summit could potentially be the most significant since the Cold War. This will be Trump's first NATO meeting since being re-elected, and Trump's ambassador to NATO says the meeting could be historic. So what definite outcomes can we expect? Well, that very much depends on the man arriving in the Netherlands on Air Force One. We'll keep bringing you all of the latest developments here on Context. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.